Hey, I'm Blair Best, and tonight on The Story, we begin in downtown Portland. This week, officials are continuing the push to revitalize downtown. Yes, they're still trying to find ways to do that. But this comes as stricter regulations and increased fees are hitting small businesses and you who may want to park downtown. It's our big story tonight.
I do want to just talk about bringing that Portland spirit, that opportunity to restore and repair and revitalize the community that we also love so very much. And that's what today is about.
That was Portland Mayor Keith Wilson celebrating for the first time in 6 years the return of Sunday Parkways in downtown Portland. That's where streets are closed off for a community block party. It's run by the Portland Bureau of Transportation. Here's PBOT's director.
We're proud to bring Sunday Parkways back downtown as a part of the city's intentional effort to revitalize the core of our city.
Okay, so you heard it there again. Another way the city is trying to revitalize. Well, not everyone who works downtown is feeling that support. We caught up with the owner of Cafe Nell here on Northwest Kearney Street. PBOT is now ordering them to remove parts of this outdoor dining structure, which they put in place during COVID, because the city deems some of it unsafe.
That this platform that had existed for 5 years was now 4.5 feet too close to this intersection. We also had to remove a step out here.
Because they said it was a safety hazard?
Well, it was covering, it wasn't covering the water meter, but it overlapped the edge of the water meter.
Got it.
So I was being fined for having a rug on the sidewalk, but meanwhile I can show you photos of 8 to 12 tents totally blocking the sidewalk within a 4-block radius of here.
Do you think that these restrictions on businesses like yours are kind of working against that message?
Of course I do. The city should roll out the red carpet to those of us who are digging in deep and trying to stay a part of the community. Sending a business a fine and a threat, that's not working together for a solution. And why wouldn't you want to do everything that you can to help us survive and thrive? Is the city going to be better off if I close this restaurant down? Is this community going to be better off?
A PBOT spokesperson tells me they gave Cafe Nell 6 months to bring their structure into compliance before being fined. The owner has made some changes and is currently going through the appeal process.
We continue to work together with community partners and the restaurants who want to do the outdoor dining. There have been some instances when we've had to make some adjustments. We've been making adjustments over the course of the past several years, especially post-pandemic, to bring things back into some sense of order. That's really important. While we want to make sure we're helping businesses to activate, we need to make sure that we're doing so responsibly and that the right-of-way is maintained well. So we've put some guidelines in place to help folks to conform to the expectations. Sometimes that does come at some burden to folks, and we're working with them to figure out how we can best support their needs.
And not to mention the increased parking fees, making it more expensive for people to visit and work downtown. Exactly what the mayor and others have been pushing for. Parking in downtown Portland will now cost $3.60 an hour. Just 3 years ago in 2022, it was just $2.20 an hour. But another change when it comes to parking downtown will take effect September 2nd. Parking enforcement hours, which currently end at 7 p.m. every day of the week, will be extended to 10 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Here's what the mayor had to say when we asked him how these increased parking fees can be seen as working against the city's effort to revitalize.
You know, we see downtown foot traffic increasing, but fees are a way to just fund that transportation network. When we look at our roads, they're crumbling. We see it outside of our windshield, we see it under our bike tires. We have to find ways to fund our infrastructure. But we do see a downtown that's revitalizing. We see the renaissance that's coming. We can look at it, continue to look at it, to work with our restaurants and our hoteliers to make them successful.
We've had a lot of conversations about parking, the new extension of hours, the increase in the fees for parking per hour. We hope to be able to continue to work with partners as we've heard feedback to make adjustments to ensure that the things that we're implementing are actually working in support of their businesses being able to survive and thrive.
Okay, and while we're on the topic of revitalizing downtown, you may have heard about this report this week from Governor Tina Kotek's Portland Central City Task Force. This is from their tax advisory group, which put together a list of policy options to, quote, realign Portland's tax and service systems with current realities. Now, the chair of that tax group writing, "The data are clear. Our current path is eroding economic competitiveness and public trust. Not every idea on the table will be right for Portland, but doing nothing is not an option. We must be willing to make bold, targeted changes now to restore our economic vitality and deliver the services our communities expect and deserve." Now, among the 38-page report, there are three sort of pillars that the tax group says need to be focused on. Number one, strengthening fiscal governance and transparency. Two, reforming major revenue programs. And lastly, revitalizing Portland Central City. Now, each of those comes with several policy ideas meant to be a sort of starting point for discussion about reforms. And not everyone in the tax group agreed on all of these. Now, since we just talked about downtown, let's start with number three. Joining us live to help us better understand this is John Taponia, a consultant to the Central City Task Force and a senior policy advisor with the firm Eco Northwest. Mr. Taponia, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I mentioned, let's start with that downtown piece of the report. Most of the recommendations revolve around attracting employers downtown through tax credits and exemptions. So from your perspective, would doing one or all of those things move the needle enough to bring businesses downtown?
Absolutely, and the idea is these are options. So it wouldn't make sense to sort of take all 20. Some of them are competing with one another. But certainly there's some really good ideas in that section that you just referred to, in particular, sort of the business incentive tax credit. So both the city and the county have corporate income taxes that they levy on businesses in the region. And so if you take out a lease in a downtown office, maybe getting a break on those taxes would incent folks to come in. And I know there are active conversations right now. The city actually ran that during the pandemic. It had a $25 million budget for it, and it was well subscribed. Other ideas, we have a strategic investment program out in Washington County. It's used very heavily for the semiconductor industry. So the idea might be, what if we had something for downtown, and people that wanted to build and invest capital in downtown might get some property tax breaks over time?
So we hear all the time from people in the community and businesses alike that the perception of downtown Portland is often enough to keep people away. Now, you add things like those parking fee increases that we talked about earlier. I mean, what can be done in your eyes, to fix downtown's reputation?
Well, a lot of it really does have to do with foot traffic. I think the more that people come into downtown, I think they're going to see a different downtown than many have in their own mind. But gradually getting that foot traffic back, and it starts with visitors. And I think the city and the Portland Metro Chamber and others have done a good job. There's a staycation program that's coming up in September, et cetera. Getting more people exposed and seeing a few more people every time you go down, I think is going to be really important to change the perception.
But do you think increased parking fees and regulations like that would work against revitalizing efforts?
Well, as somebody trained in economics, taxes have incentives, and so increasing costs, it does put a little bit of a headwind in that, sure.
Okay, now let's talk about the part of the report making the most waves this week, proposed changes to major revenue programs. We're talking about the Supportive Housing Services Tax, the Portland Clean Energy Fund, and the Preschool for All. Now, the report recommends pausing the Preschool for All tax for a few years, exploring alternative funding, and eventually transition the program statewide and ending the local tax. Just yesterday, county commissioners punted the idea of indexing the tax to inflation, with serious pushback from the community worried about the future of the program. Now, it appears any Preschool for All reform would be sort of an uphill battle. Do these recommendations for the program even have a chance?
So first of all, I would describe these as options. They weren't recommendations, and there's a little bit of a difference there. And I think it really does have to do with where and how do elected officials look at the severity of the city and the county's economic performance. There is a big debate right now. The Multnomah County's job performance is lagging significantly to its neighboring counties, to Clark County, and to the rest of the state and to the nation. And a big question as to whether sort of the combination of all these programs coming online with all of their various taxes at the same time has something to do with that economic underperformance. I think the balance of the view of those on the task force was there was a relationship between those things, and that elected leaders need to look at each of those three programs seriously and think about changes that could be made that would both ease the tax burden and increase the performance of the services. One of the biggest problems is that across those three programs, at the end of fiscal year 2024, there was $1.2 billion of unspent balances measured across those three programs. So, they were new, they came online very quickly. They've all had implementation issues of different kinds. And I think there's work to be done on both sides, sort of thinking about how we're collecting the money, thinking about how we're delivering programs.
Okay, John Taponia, consultant to the Central City Task Force. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's your turn. What do you think about some of these proposals or ideas? Anything stand out to you? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. All right, let's head west to Washington County and a major deal for the state's largest private employer. We're talking Intel. The U.S. government will spend nearly $9 billion on Intel stock, giving the feds a nearly 10% stake in the company. Now, that's a big deal because it's meant to help support the expansion of technology and manufacturing on U.S. soil. It's worth noting the government will not have a member on Intel's board. The money in the deal is coming from, most of which was earmarked in the CHIPS and Science Act passed during the Biden administration. $5.7 billion in CHIPS grants that had not yet been paid to Intel. $3.2 billion as part of the Secure Enclave deal to supply the U.S. Department of Defense with semiconductors. And that's alongside the $2.2 billion in CHIPS grants that Intel had already received for a total of more than $11 billion. Intel's CEO wrote in a statement today, as the only semiconductor company that does leading-edge logic R&D and manufacturing in the U.S., Intel is deeply committed to ensuring the world's most advanced technologies are American-made. President Trump's focus on U.S. chip manufacturing is driving historic investments in a vital industry that is integral to the country's economic and national security. And here's what President Trump had to say about the deal today from inside the Oval Office.
They've had some bad management over the years and they got lost. And I said, I think you should pay us 10% of your company. And they said, yes, that's about $10 billion. I don't get it. This comes to the United States of America. And I said, I think it would be good having the United States as your partner. He agreed, and they've agreed to do it. And I think it's a great deal for them. And I think it's a great deal. He walked in wanting to keep his job, and he ended up giving us $10 billion for the United States. So we picked up $10 billion, and we do a lot of deals like that. I'll do more of them.
Well, you've probably felt it, but man, it is hot out there. Tonight and for the next few days, we are under a weather impact alert. An extreme heat warning has been issued for Portland, hovering around 100 degrees, likely through next Tuesday. And it's not going to cool off until the end of next week. Cooling centers are open. You can call 211 if you need to find a place that's close to you or arrange for a ride. But let's go now to meteorologist Joe Ranieri for an extended look at what you should expect into the weekend. Joe?
Hey there, Blair. Yeah, record temperatures earlier this afternoon and also the first day so far this year with temperatures 100 degrees or warmer. We hit 102. Tomorrow we could be at 103. Record is 101. So there's a chance, Blair, we're looking at 3 days in a row with temperatures 100 degrees or hotter. Last time we did that was basically the first week of July of last summer. And we'll cool off a little bit come Monday, but there could be a few locations that are looking at 100 degrees degrees or maybe a little better from tomorrow all the way into Monday. Weather impact alert looks like this. Tonight through Tuesday, very uncomfortably warm conditions over the next couple of days. Strong ridge of high pressure in place, a strong ridge that's not going to be leaving anytime soon. So the watches, warnings, heat advisory in place throughout the west side of the state. And then also we have that extreme heat warning that will be in effect until basically late Tuesday night. From Salem, we're looking at temperatures sitting at 100 degrees. This is be another place that looks at the potential for record-breaking temperatures here the next few days. We're looking at readings right now in the upper 90s to still close to 100 degrees. 102 at PDX, 101. It's just absolutely uncomfortable temperatures. The one place, or I should say the two places that will be comfortable will be Timberline Lodge up the mountains and of course the Oregon coast tomorrow. We don't see much of a break in your overnight lows as well. Overnight lows dropping in the upper 60s. The warmest night we've had so far was just about 2 weeks ago. It's 68 degrees. Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortably warm during the day, and it doesn't cool off much over the next couple of days as well. We don't see much relief until about a week from today.
My goodness. Okay, Joe, thanks so much. Now, it's also worth noting that utility companies in Oregon cannot shut off your power during a heat wave, even if you haven't paid your bill. That's thanks to a new rule put in place earlier this summer. So if you get a notice that your power will be turned off and it cannot be done during an extreme heat advisory or for up to 2 days after. And if your power has already been turned off within the last 3 days, so since Tuesday, you can contact the utility and they must turn it back on. And if you've been without power for up to 7 days already, but have a qualifying medical condition, you may be able to get it turned back on as well. The Oregon Citizens Utility Board says the rule change could be life-saving.
A couple of weeks ago, when we had the last big heat wave in the Willamette Valley, our community organizer got a call from a woman down in Salem who had had her power shut off, and she was really concerned about the health of her children. And so we were able to help her get reconnected by letting her know about these protections. And then she was able to stay connected for 48 hours after that heat event to make sure that, her and her family and her kids were able to, really stay cool and stay healthy while the weather was so hot.
Extreme heat is the deadliest weather hazard in the U.S. In 2021, 116 people died in Oregon from heat, many of them in their own homes. 22 people died in the state the following year, 8 in 2023 and 16 last year. This year, 2 people in Multnomah County died during heat waves earlier this summer.
Over the last 5 years, especially, we've seen a lot of incredibly deadly heat waves here in Oregon. And a lot of the deaths that have been a result of that are incredibly preventable. Having access to a fan, to refrigeration, to cooling is life-saving for a lot of people. And so these rules really are trying to make sure that people are able to stay safe and healthy in their homes, no matter what the temperature is.
Now, power companies are also not allowed to charge reconnection fees during the heat wave. Well, coming up next on the story, you filled our inbox with your thoughts on a simple question: are car headlights too bright? If you missed our segment yesterday, there's a push in Congress to change that. And we'll share some of your thoughts on an issue that stretches around the world when the story returns. Well, now let's get to some of your thoughts on a story that we brought you yesterday about bright headlights. Washington Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez got an amendment added to a House spending bill that would ask the U.S. Secretary of Transportation to study the impact of headlight brightness and set a maximum brightness standard.
If you look back, to the halogen light bulbs, you're reaching somewhere around 700 to 1200 lumens. New LED technology, these sons of get to like 12,000 lumens.
Okay, the bill itself still has several more steps and opportunities to be changed before it heads to the president. But Gluesenkamp-Perez argues this issue is a chance to take bipartisan action and show Americans that Congress still cares about everyday issues. And based on your feedback, you agree something needs to be done.
I have to limit myself now driving at night because these headlights are downright dangerous, and I am surprised that they're allowed to even be on the streets. And as far as I'm concerned, if I kill somebody because of that, the car manufacturers and whoever's responsible for allowing this to happen will be responsible for murder.
Casey wrote in, yes, headlights are too bright. I went from a 2013 car to a 2021 car with LED headlights. The dim lights on the 2021 car are brighter than the bright lights on my 2013 car. At least have some kind of standard that doesn't blind everyone.
Boy, I go to work in the morning. I'll tell you, the lights are so bright when I see pedestrians sometimes crossing the street. Those headlights hit you, that pedestrian completely disappears. Pedestrians are getting hit all the time. Finally, someone can make a connection between these bright headlights and these people getting hit.
Marty chimed in saying, yes, headlights are too bright. Being blinded while driving isn't working for me. Even if I look away and try to find the white line or curb to the right, I literally can't see the road for several seconds. It's just a matter of luck and time. Okay, this story also showed us that it's not just a Pacific Northwest problem or just an issue here in the U.S. Ken from Michigan saw our story and wrote in saying, driving has become a nightmare for me since LED headlights are used on most cars. When my eyes are dazzled by LED headlights, immediately I start feeling eye pain and headaches. I would rather drive through a snowstorm or a downpour instead of trying to battle my way through blinding LED headlights. And we even heard from a rep at a PR firm across the Atlantic Ocean saying this is a subject of significant interest to drivers here in the UK. And we've been leading a campaign to get the UK government and in turn those across Europe to look into the issue. We're having some success as a UK report is due to be delivered to our government in the coming weeks. And we'll end on this comment from another viewer named Ken, who told us, as a lighting specialist, I know that the number of lumens isn't the issue. 3,000 lumens is reasonable for the application and makes driving safer than the legacy inefficient light sources. The problem is that many headlights are misaligned and point up instead of out and down. If we could better control that alignment, the problem would be significantly decreased. Stay with us. We're back right after this. Well, the KGW School Supply Drive is going on now. Some of the most needed school supplies are pencils, line paper, crayons, and markers. And you can drop off any of these supplies at any On Point branch, Rick's Custom Fencing, or one of many community partners like Deschutes Brewery. And all this week, Windermere Real Estate will match the first $5,000 donated, doubling your donation and helping more students. We want to thank On Point Community Credit Union, Safeway, and Rick's Custom Fencing for everything they're doing to make this year's supply drive a success. Well, that is the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Timbers 360 is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. Please do your best to stay cool this weekend. Check on your friends, neighbors who may have a tough time with the heat. It's expected to last again into next week as well, so we will bring you the latest outlook on Monday night at 6:30.